Shamakun, Radhakun, Giri Govardhan ki jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Marpu Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Yamuna Mai ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Marni ki jai, Samaveta Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Thai Gaur Premanande. All glories to Samu devotees. All glories to Samu devotees. All glories to Samu devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming to our Sunday feast program today. So today I've been asked to talk a bit about the glories of Bhagavad Gita, since next week we're celebrating Gita Jayanti. So next Sunday is the day which Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So it's coming next Sunday, and next Sunday also happens to be a Mokshada Ekadasi. So Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita on Mokshada Ekadasi, so it's a very auspicious occasion. So we request everyone to please also come next Sunday also. And next Sunday the program will start early in the morning, so 7:45 a.m. in the morning before breakfast prasadam. We will have a class about Bhagavad Gita, glories of Bhagavad Gita by His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, who is visiting Sydney this week. So we'll be giving a special class about Gita. So that's at 7:45 a.m. before breakfast. Then from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. So for 5 hours we'll be reciting all the slokas of Bhagavad Gita. So there are 700 slokas in the Bhagavad Gita. So from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. next Sunday on Moksha Ekadasi, Gita Jayanti, we'll be reciting all the 700 slokas in Bhagavad Gita together. So everyone can bring their Bhagavad Gitas and we can all sing and chant the verses together. I think we'll also have the verses on a projector also. So if someone doesn't have Gita, they can also look at the projector and recite. And before it starts, at 12:30, we'll serve prasadam, and there'll be Aarti also, the midday Aarti. And then 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., we have a Gita Mahayagna. So we'll be having a big homa, a big fire sacrifice in the temple room for all the devotees, in the name of all the devotees who participated in the Gita Jayanti festival. So we're requesting everyone on this auspicious day of Gita Jayanti to please either buy or purchase Bhagavad Gitas themselves and distribute it to your friends, family members, colleagues at work, so on and so forth. Or you can sponsor Bhagavad Gitas and the temple can distribute them on your behalf to people all over Sydney in different suburbs. So for all those devotees who either buy Bhagavad Gitas to distribute to their friends or who sponsor Bhagavad Gitas for the temple to distribute for the people of Sydney, we'll be doing the Gita Mahayagna in their name. So that'll be from 6 to 7, then Gaurati, Prasadam and Kirtan. So that's the program coming up next Sunday. So we request everyone to please also come next Sunday also. But next Sunday program will start at 1 p.m. or 12:30. We'll serve lunch prasadam. Then 1 p.m. onwards, we'll be reciting all the slokas of Bhagavad Gita. So today, I thought we can read a bit from the introduction of Bhagavad Gita as it is, which is the most widely read Bhagavad Gita in the world. So this is translated and commentaries have been given by our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada, in the introduction, he explains that before he came to America in 1970 or late 1960s, there were already more than 200 different editions of Bhagavad Gita or different versions of Bhagavad Gita. So many different sannyasis, gurus, philosophers, even politicians, so on and so forth, teachers, professors, had written different versions of Bhagavad Gita. But Prabhupada explained in the introduction Gita that although so many different versions of Bhagavad Gita are out there, not one devotee of Krishna has been made outside of India. Although in India there's many devotees of Krishna, but if you look outside of India, in China, South America, England, Australia, Russia, Mongolia, so on and so forth. If you look at all the other countries around the world, Prabhupada explains, you won't find a single pure devotee of Krishna. Only in India you'll find devotees of Krishna. But there's 200 different editions of Gita, which have been sent to different libraries all around the world. But although people all around the world are reading these different interpretations of Gita, no one's hearts are being transformed and no one is becoming a devotee of Krishna. But then Prabhupada explains, now I wrote this Bhagavad Gita called Bhagavad Gita as it is, which means Bhagavad Gita without any interpretation. As it is coming down through parampara from Krishna himself, through a chain of gurus, disciplic succession. So Prabhupada explains, but after we wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is, and we distributed it all around the world, suddenly now you see, in countries and cities all around the world, there's now devotees of Krishna. If you go to China, Hong Kong, you'll see so many Chinese-bodied devotees chanting Hare Krishna, reading Gita, following the four regular principles, performing devotional service. If you go to Russia, we'll see thousands and thousands of devotees, Russian devotees, chanting Hare Krishna, following the path of bhakti, studying Bhagavad Gita. Like this all around the world, Prabhupada explains, if you go to any city, in any continent, all around the world, you'll always find one Hare Krishna temple, and you always find the local people there practicing devotional service, practicing bhakti. So Prabhupada explains, this is the effect of Bhagavad Gita as it is. When you give Bhagavad Gita as it is, coming down through Guru Parampara, without putting our own interpretations, the medicine will have its effect. Prabhupada explains, just like when we take some medicine from a pharmacy, we go to chemist's warehouse or some chemist, and we buy some medicine. The medicine will only have effect if we take the medicine as it is. If we take the medicine and dilute it, we mix some, we think, oh, maybe if I mix some orange juice in the medicine will taste very sweet. This medicine is bitter, let me mix some orange juice in the medicine. Or the taste is very strong, let me dilute it. Let me mix some water in it, so the taste won't be as strong. So if we dilute the medicine by mixing in other substances, then the medicine won't have full effect. And Prabhupada explained, this is the story with all the other 200 versions of Bhagavad Gita. The authors of these other versions of Gita, they're not giving Bhagavad Gita as it is. They're putting their own views, interpretations, so on and so forth. That's why these other Gitas aren't transforming people's heart. That's why not one devotee of Krishna was made outside of India before Prabhupada wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is. But now that Prabhupada has presented Bhagavad Gita in its pure state as it is, Prabhupada is explaining, all around the world, in all the cities around the world, we now have devotees of Krishna. So that is the difference between this Gita we study and the other Gitas you'll find in the library or the marketplace. And now currently this Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada is the most widely distributed edition of the Bhagavad Gita all around the world. It's published in more than 80 different languages around the world. They use them in universities as textbooks. And these books of Srila Prabhupada, currently over the last 50 years, more than 500 million books have been distributed of Srila Prabhupada. So you can imagine the world population is, I think, 7 or 8 billion. And Prabhupada's books over the past 50 years, 500 million of his books have been sold all around the world in just 50 years. So nearly one in every 16 people in the world, they will have one of these books. So that's how widely these books have been distributed. So if we go by these statistics, in the history of the world, these books of Srila Prabhupada are actually the most widely distributed or most widely sold books of all time. Even if you do some Google research, search up, the most popular books of all time, the number one will be Harry Potter. Right? So that's the most widely sold book of all time in the history of, whatever historians calculate. And if we look at the numbers, you'll see it'll be somewhere around that also. But the number of books that Srila Prabhupada's books have been distributed, it's more than 500 million, and it'll continue on increasing. With every decade, more and more, millions and millions of books will be distributed. So in this way, Prabhupada's books are the most widely distributed, most widely sold books of all time in the history of mankind. So this is the unique blessing that Srila Prabhupada has given us by giving us Bhagavad Gita as it is. So today in the introduction, at the end of the introduction Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada, he quotes some verses from the Gita Mahatmya, which is from one of the Puranas. And in that, the Puranas, they glorify the effect or the potency of Bhagavad Gita. So there is, I think, 7 or 8 verses. I'll recite some of these verses. So this is text number 1 from Gita Mahatmya. So this is at the end of the introduction of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Gita jaya yana silasya pranayama parasya cha neva santihi papani purva janma kritani cha. If one reads Bhagavad Gita very sincerely and with all seriousness, then by the grace of the Lord, the reactions of his past misdeeds will not act upon him. So this verse explaining about the importance of very sincerely studying Bhagavad Gita, hearing Bhagavad Gita. If one very sincerely studies Gita, all the reactions of all of his past misdeeds from all past lifetimes will all be eradicated. Just like Krishna at the end of the Gita, he explains that when one studies this book, Bhagavad Gita, when one recites some verses and thinks and starts contemplating, what is this verse talking about? What is Krishna explaining here? When one is contemplating like this, what one is actually doing, he's actually worshipping me with his intelligence. Just like in our temple, we have our pujaris, and very soon we'll have Gorati at 7 o'clock. So during Gorati, we see the pujaris, they'll be worshipping Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, they'll be offering different items, in worship of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadramani, and Shri Shri Gaunitai. So you see them offering incense in worship of the Lord, then offering lamp, fire, then you see them offering water, and then we'll see them offering the handkerchief, vastra, cloth, then flowers, then we'll see them offering the chamara, then finally the peacock fan. So these are all different articles, according to the path of Archan, we can use to worship the Supreme Lord. Same way next Sunday we're going to have a Gita Mahayagna. That is another way we can worship the Supreme Lord. The actual fire of the yagna, that is the mouth of Lord Vishnu. And Agni, he's taking the offerings and he's passing it on to Krishna or Vishnu. So in this way, there's different ways one can worship the Supreme Lord. One is by deity worship, another one is by fire sacrifice, homa. And in Gita, Krishna, he explains another way we can worship him. A very simple, easy way, which is by reading these beautiful verses which he has given in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna explains when one is using his intelligence to try and understand, what is Krishna explaining in this chapter? What is he trying to tell Arjuna? What is the meaning of this verse? What is the meaning of this chapter? When we're using our intelligence to contemplate on these verses of Gita, Krishna is explaining, that is as good as doing deity worship. That is as good as doing a fire sacrifice. So that is another way we can worship Krishna. This way, in this particular way, we're worshipping him through our intelligence. So just like when we do a fire sacrifice, we get freed from all of our sins. When we worship the divine couple in Archan, in the path of Archan, deity worship, all of our sinful reactions gets wiped away. In the same way, when we study Bhagavad Gita, we're worshipping Krishna through our intelligence, and in this way, all our past sins get eradicated. In the Gita Mahatmya, there are different stories given about the benefit of reading different chapters of the Gita. So it's coming from one Purana, and in this Purana there's a conversation recounted between Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati. And Lord Shiva is explaining to Mother Parvati the different benefits one gets from reciting different chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So when it comes to the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the first story he explains, he talks about the importance of hearing and reciting Bhagavad Gita. And he gives a story of one parrot who in his past life was a Brahmana, but he was a very proud Brahmana. And he used to criticize others. Like in India, if we go nowadays, we'll see many persons who claim to be Brahmanas, but they don't act like Brahmanas. They're very proud, arrogant, they speak foul language. If you look at their lifestyle, they eat meat and do all sorts of abominable activities. So this Brahmana, he was like that. Externally he was a Brahmana, but he was doing a lot of sinful activities. He was very proud and arrogant. So due to his sins, in his next life, he became a parrot. And due to his sins, his parents died when he was very young. And he was left by himself, and he was starving in the sun. Then, as he was starving and suffering by himself, some sages or rishis in the forest, they happened to see this parrot. And they take pity on this little baby parrot suffering all by himself. Then they pick up this parrot, take them to their ashram, and they put this small baby parrot in one cage. And in the ashram of these rishis, they have little children, 5, 6-year-old kids, who are all learning in the Gurukul. So in Vedic culture, as soon as one hits the age of 5 years old, they're sent to Gurukul, which is like a Vedic boarding school, where they learn, where they get both mature and spiritual education. And from the age of 5 to 25, children, they're given full training or education by the Guru or the spiritual master. So in this ashram of these rishis, there were these young students who were learning Bhagavad Gita. And these young students, they were starting with chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. And the Guru was teaching them how to recite them, in different tunes. And the students were repeating or reciting after the spiritual master, after the Guru. Dharma shestre kuruksestre samaveta yursava mamaka pandavascheva kimma kurvata sanja. Like this, they were reciting out loud different slokas from the first chapter. Now this little baby parrot, he was hearing these slokas being recited by these little, small children. And he was hearing, and then as parrots do, they imitate. Whatever you speak to them, they try and imitate back. So by hearing again and again, because it's said if you want to memorize a sloka from the Shastra, there are different steps that one needs to do. The first, number one step is repetition. We have to keep on repeating that verse again and again and again and again and again. Unless we do repetition, it won't stay in our memory. We have to keep on reciting the sloka out loud, and it has to be recited out loud. So according to Vedic culture, whenever we read Sanskrit, it's a very sacred language. It's said to be the language of the gods. We're supposed to recite it out loud. English we can read in our mind, no problem. But especially when it comes to Sanskrit, we should always speak it out loud. That is Vedic culture. That's why when devotees, they read either Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, when it comes to the verses itself, we recite it out loud. And then the English, we can read in our mind. It's up to us. We can either speak it out loud or read it in our mind. But especially Sanskrit, we should always recite it out loud. It's said to be the language of the gods, and it's very purifying to hear it spoken out or sung out loud. So, with memorizing any slokas, the first step is repetition. We have to keep on reciting it again and again and again. Another step is we have to understand the meaning of all the different words in the sloka. If we understand the meanings, then it will stay in our memory. Otherwise, and also it will benefit us also. Like during Prabhupada's time, one of the things Prabhupada established was Gurukul system. So I'm not sure which Gurukul this took place. There was 2 prominent Gurukuls during Prabhupada's time. One was in Dallas, Texas, in America. And another Gurukul being started was in Vrindavan, in India, during Prabhupada's time. So in one of these Gurukuls, the devotees, they were teaching little children different verses or slokas from Bhagavad Gita. And some of these children, they had memorized entire chapters of Bhagavad Gita. By reciting again and again and again and again and again, they had memorized the whole chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And the teachers, they were feeling so proud. They had just said, we've made these children memorize the whole chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So they were feeling very proud of themselves. And they were thinking, when Prabhupada comes here, we will make these children, recite the Bhagavad Gita slokas out loud. And Prabhupada will be so happy to see how we're teaching these little children. So when Prabhupada came, and immediately they brought all the children, and they asked these children to recite slokas from Bhagavad Gita. And these little children, these kids, they started reciting. Some of them, they knew a whole chapter by heart, and they just started, reciting one verse after another. And Prabhupada said, okay. And then Prabhupada asked them a question. Okay, can you tell me the meaning of any one of the verses that you recited? And the little kid that recited these slokas, he was just blank. He didn't know the meaning of any of the verses he recited. Just by repetition he had learned. He's memorized them, but he didn't know the meaning of any of them. He couldn't answer. Then Prabhupada, he looked at the teachers and he told them that this is good that they're memorizing the slokas, but more important than them just, mechanically memorizing the verses, it's more important they understand the meaning of these verses. Otherwise, there's not so much benefit. And Prabhupada explained to the teachers that more important than memorizing, it's better they understand the meaning, because that is what will benefit them. That is what will transform their lives, transform their consciousness. That is what will help them in their spiritual lives. So memorizing is one bit, but more important than memorizing is understanding the meaning of these verses. So when it comes to memorizing any sloka, obviously repetition is one important step. We have to keep on repeating the sloka, reciting the sloka out loud again and again and again. Then it will stay in our memory. But along with that, we have to understand the meaning of the meaning of the words in the sloka. What is this sloka talking about? And step number 3, we have to try and apply that verse in our lives. Just like we have the famous verse from 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Matra spasas tu konteya sitosana sukha dukkada agama paino nityas tamstitikshasa bharata. So Arjuna is telling Krishna, how can I fight this battle? My friends are on the other side. My grandfather is on the other side. My teachers are on the other side. My cousins are on the other side. How can I kill my friends? How can I kill my cousins? How can I kill my very dear grandfather? How can I kill my uncles? How can I kill my teachers who have taught me everything? This is too much. I can't do this. Yes, I understand that they're not the body, they're the soul. Yes, I understand if they die on the battlefield, they will go to the heavenly planets. But still, this is a very difficult service that you're asking me to do. So what is Krishna's response? Krishna is telling Arjuna, tamstitikshasa bharata, that you just have to tolerate, my dear Arjuna. Sometimes the duties we do will be to our liking. But sometimes the duties or services given to us won't be to our liking. At those times, as a sake of duty, we have to tolerate the inconveniences and just do it for Krishna's pleasure. So with any service we do, there will always be some difficulty. No service will be, everything will go perfectly. So when these difficulties come, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that we just have to tolerate and understand the purpose. Okay, this will please Krishna, this will please Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, this will please my Guru. Although there's this obstacle, this difficulty, let me tolerate and let me do it for a higher purpose. So like this, if we understand the meaning of this verse, then there is unlimited applications for this verse. Because every day we are faced with so many different challenges. And at all those times, we can just recite this simple verse of Bhagavad Gita, and this will give us strength to tackle our mind and to continue onwards. So that's why Prabhupada explained to these teachers of the Gurukul that along with memorizing, we should understand the meaning. So step number 1, we have to keep on repeating the sloka out loud. Step number 2, we have to understand the meaning of the individual words. What is the sloka talking about? And number 3, we have to actually live that sloka. We have to actually be a living example of that verse of Bhagavad Gita. We have to try and apply it in our lives. So all of us, Prabhupada wanted all of us to be walking Bhagavatams, walking Bhagavatas, which means persons who are actually living Bhagavad Gita, persons who are actually living examples of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So these students in this Gurukul, they were reciting these slokas out loud. And this parrot was hearing these verses of first chapter. And as parrots do, when they hear something, they imitate you and they recite it back out. So by hearing again and again, by reciting out back, this parrot, it also memorized the whole first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It didn't understand the meaning, but by hearing again and reciting again, it memorized the whole first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And he used to always recite out loud. Then one day a thief came and stole that parrot from the ashram of these sages. And then the thief went and sold that parrot in the marketplace. And out of all the persons who could have bought this parrot, one prostitute in that city, she ends up buying this parrot. So this prostitute, she takes this parrot to her house. And obviously being a prostitute, she has accumulated a lot of sinful reactions. She's not living the most honest or faithful life. But she has this parrot in her house, and this parrot, by good fortune, he has memorized the whole first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And now it's become its habit to always recite first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So this parrot is in the house of this prostitute, and this parrot is reciting slokas from first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And this prostitute, she doesn't really understand what is this parrot saying. She doesn't know where these slokas. She's hearing some Sanskrit verse, but she doesn't know where is this coming from. Which shastra, what is this slokas about. But she just hears. So she's just, every day she would just hear these different verses of first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. She didn't understand where it's from. She didn't understand what is the meaning. But it sounded nice and she enjoyed listening. And later on, it's given in Gita Mahatmya that both the parrot, who was sinful in his last life, and both this prostitute, who was also living a sinful life, both of them got purified of all their sins. Both of them got delivered. The parrot got delivered by reciting the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita out loud. And the prostitute, she got delivered simply by hearing the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita being recited by the parrot. So in this way, Lord Shiva, he glorifies the potency of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Like this, for every single chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there is a different story given by Lord Shiva to Mother Parvati about the potency and the power of Bhagavad Gita. So either whether we're only hearing the Gita, or whether we're reciting it out loud, or whether we're remembering some sloka, contemplating on it, understanding the meaning, either way, somehow or other, if we connect with these verses of Bhagavad Gita, we will be benefited, we will be purified. And Lord Shiva explains, we'll ultimately attain love for Krishna. Because these verses of Bhagavad Gita, they are non-different from Krishna. Just like Prabhupada explains that Mother Ganga, where did she come from? She came from the lotus feet of Vishnu. And because she came from the lotus feet of Vishnu, Mother Ganga is supremely pure. And anyone who takes bath in Mother Ganga, he will be freed from all sinful reactions. In the same way, just like Ganga came from Krishna's lotus feet, in the same way Prabhupada explains that this Bhagavad Gita is coming from Krishna's mouth. This is like an ocean of nectar or river of nectar flowing from Krishna's mouth. So in the same way, anyone who takes bath in this river, transcendental river of Bhagavad Gita, he will also be purified. Okay, so that's the first verse of the Gita Mahatmya. We'll go to verse number 2. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha yasasmi masucha. Abandon all varieties of religion, just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful actions. Do not fear. Actually, this is a verse from, and Prabhupada is quoting it in the middle of his purport. I'll go to the next verse. Mala nirmochanam pumsam jala snanam dine dine sakrit gitamrita snanam samsara melanasanam. One may cleanse himself daily by taking a bath in water, but if one takes a bath even once in the sacred Ganges water of Bhagavad Gita, for him, the dirt of material life is altogether vanquished. So we just discussed this now. So just like when we take a shower in the morning, externally our physical body is cleansed. In the same way, when we take bath in the river of Bhagavad Gita, then our consciousness, our mind, our soul gets completely cleansed of all anarthas. We're running out of time. I'll go to verse number 6 of the Gita Mahatmya. Sarvo panis sadogavo dogda gopalanandana parto vatsa sudhir bhokta dugdham gitam ritam mahat. This Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all the Upanishads, is just like a cow. And Lord Krishna, who is famous as a cowherd boy, is milking this cow. Arjuna is just like a calf, and learned scholars and pure devotees are to drink the nectarian milk of Bhagavad Gita. So in this verse, a beautiful analogy has been given. So Vedavyas, he wrote all of our Shastras, as we know. He wrote the 4 Vedas, Mahabharata, Vedanta Sutra, 18 Puranas, and 108 Upanishads. So this verse is explaining that the 108 Upanishads, they are compared to a cow. So all the different Upanishads we have, 108, they're like a cow. And Bhagavad Gita is explained to be the essence of all the 108 Upanishads. And Bhagavad Gita is compared to the milk which comes from the cow. Okay, so the 108 Upanishads, they're like mother cow. And the milk that comes from mother cow is compared to the Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of all the 108 Upanishads. Then Arjuna is compared to the calf. And Lord Krishna is compared to the cowherd boy. So the cowherd boy, he milks the cow to get the milk out of the cow. So in the same way, Krishna, as the cowherd boy, he is milking the 108 Upanishads and taking out the essence of all the Upanishads, which is Bhagavad Gita, which is the milk coming from the cow. And who is drinking this nectarian milk? It is the calf. Who is the calf? That is Arjuna. So Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So Krishna is the cowherd boy milking, taking the essence from the cow, which is the 108 Upanishads. The milk which is Krishna is extracting is Bhagavad Gita. And the calf that is drinking the nectarian milk is Arjuna. Now, as we know, in cows, they not only give enough milk for their own calves, but they give excess milk, extra milk for human beings to also be consumed. So who are those other human beings who are taking the milk of a cow? That is us. So Krishna, Prabhupada explains that Krishna, he spoke this Bhagavad Gita not only for Arjuna to drink, but Krishna spoke this Bhagavad Gita for the people of all the future generations. For all places, times and circumstances, no matter whichever part of the world, for all the future generations, Krishna, he spoke this Bhagavad Gita to benefit us. So we can also drink this nectarian milk of Bhagavad Gita. And what happens when we drink this milk? Many times when we ask people, you should take Gita home, you should read Bhagavad Gita. One of the main questions that comes up, what will I get, right, when I read Gita? How will it benefit me? I'm a busy man. I'm doing so many things. How will it benefit me? How will it change my life? What is it in it for me? Right? So, Bhagavatam in 11th canto, it gives 3 benefits we get when we drink this transcendental nectar of Bhagavad Gita, which is called Gita Amritam, the transcendental nectar of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavatam, it gives the example, just like when we take prasad or food, just like outside we're serving the Sunday feast. So all of us are hungry, and we go out to take prasad. We have a nice place of rice, dal, sabji, pakoras, some drink, and some sweet. What happens when we eat prasadam? Slowly, with every mouthful of prasadam, we start feeling happiness. We start feeling happy. Wow, this tastes really nice. Immediately we start feeling happy, we start feeling satisfied. So that is effect number 1. Number 2, we start getting nourishment. We start getting strength. If we're fasting or hungry for 4 or 5 hours, body is a bit weak. Slowly, as we take prasadam, we start feeling stronger. Our body gets more and more energy, and we feel the nourishment. Okay, that's effect number 2. Then effect number 3 is, with every mouthful of prasad we take, the burning pangs of hunger, which is there in our stomach, slowly starts dissipating. Initially, before we take the prasad, we're feeling some pain in the stomach, the pains of hunger. But slowly, with every mouthful of prasad, that pain of hunger is slowly going away. So in the same way, Bhagavatam explains, when we drink in this nectar of Bhagavad Gita, when we drink this transcendental milk of Bhagavad Gita, these same 3 things will happen. Number 1, we will feel transcendental bliss, ecstasy. We will feel so much satisfaction. Just like we see with the example of Arjuna. How was he feeling at the start of Bhagavad Gita? He was totally distressed. He was having, according to modern psychologists, he was having a mental breakdown. He was in depression. Tears were coming from his eyes. His whole body was shaking. He let go of his bow. He was telling Krishna, I don't know what to do. Should I do this? Should I don't? I'm completely bewildered. So it was complete stress and anxiety. Just like we get into also. So that was Arjuna's position at the start of Gita. But after he drank the transcendental nectar of Bhagavad Gita, through his years, what was the result at the end? In 18th chapter, Arjuna tells Krishna, Nasta moha smritir labda, tvat prasadan maya chuta, stito asmi gata sandeha, karise vachanam tava. That now, my dear Krishna, after drinking this nectar of Bhagavad Gita, I'm completely satisfied, my illusion is gone. Now I'm ready to fight, now I'm ready for action. Now he's happy and peaceful. So that is the first effect. Drinking Bhagavad Gita. And that we will feel satisfaction, we will feel bliss, we will feel happiness. Number 2, nourishment. We ourselves will feel spiritually nourished. We will get spiritual strength when we drink in these verses of the Bhagavad Gita. And number 3, just like when we take prasadam, the pangs of hunger in our stomach, slowly, they start reducing. In the same way, the pangs of all the material desires that we have in our consciousness. All of us, we have so many different material desires, bad habits, anarthas, which we know is bad, but we're finding it hard to get rid of. Just like when we take prasadam, these hunger pangs go away. In the same way, when we're drinking these verses of Bhagavad Gita, all of these material desires, bad habits, anarthas we have in our consciousness, slowly, they'll be mitigated. Okay, with this, we'll stop here. So please come again next Sunday also, when we'll celebrate Gita Jayanti on Mokshada Ekadashi.